Top 5 Best Canon DSLR Lenses for Video. Number 5. Canon EF 70-200mm f2.8 L IS USM III. The 70-200mm is a lot of photographers' favorite telephoto lens. A telephoto lens is a long lens that allows you to photograph distant subjects easily. This is due to how long their focal length is. A lens is considered a telephoto lens if it has a focal length of over 60 mm. A telephoto lens is extremely useful for action photography. They are also popular in portrait and macro photography. They produce a natural perspective free from the distortion caused by using a wide-angle lens. Canon's version of this lens is optically impressive. The excellent autofocus performance ensures that the full optical impressiveness is realized. Image stabilization adds to the already great versatility. And, on top of that, a great build quality makes this lens reliable and fun to use. Canon has always knocked it out of the park with ensuring their L line of lenses are nicely weather sealed. The first 70-200mm Canon L lens is the first lens I ever purchased for my camera 10 years ago. That is when I fell in love with L glass forever. The sharpness, color, and quality is absolutely unbeatable. I dare anyone to find me a better equivalent piece of glass than Canon. Once I updated to the f2.82 version, there was no going back. This version 3 is absolutely worth a try, and I know for a fact you'll fall in love with it. Coming in number 4. Canon EF 24-70mm f2.8 L USM II. Fondly known as the walk-around lens by professionals and hobbyists alike. The 24-70mm lens is the staple of any photography kit. It's a lens that offers diversity and functionality. Its range makes the 24-70mm lens a remarkable companion for a vast array of photo shoots. From wide captures to close-up portraits, and everything in between. This lens has landed itself as Canon's most popular lens. The EF 24-70mm f2.8 L II USM features improvements to image sharpness, vignetting, and AF speed. When pairing with a camera body that features advanced autofocus systems, version 2 is significantly faster than its predecessor. Version 2 also features weather sealing with a front filter in place. And it's significantly lighter and easier on the arms. I've used this particular lens for years. I can attest to its durability and hardy build. I have had this specific model knocked out of my arms at a metal concert I was photographing. It still lived to tell the tale. For those that have used 24-70mm in the past, you'll have a great frame of reference for this version too. It's worth trying out. Coming in number 3. Canon EF 85mm f1.2 L II USM. The 85mm is likely one of my favorite focal lengths, and as such, I have gone through my share of 85mm lenses. None have stood out to me as much as the Canon EF 85mm f1.2 L II USM. With an aperture as creamy as their Canon EF 50mm f1.2 L USM lens, the 85mm delivers at a much longer focal length. It's ideal for a variety of distance shoots, such as pets or candid portraits. And the low light capabilities due to the wide open aperture just add to the list of things this lens is a beast at. This lens is all metal, and can definitely survive some drops and hits. Canon's L quality glass makes this lens a must-see for professional photographers. You'll notice the difference in sharpness, color, contrast, and vignetting. The Canon EF 85mm f1.2 L II USM is not a lens for beginners. It comes with a steep learning curve. But it will change your world once you try it. Coming in number 2. Canon EF 35mm f1.4 L II USM. Just as much a celebrity in the photography world as the 50mm. The 35mm grew to fame with its multitude of applications and videography use. As such, every camera brand on the planet has 100 different versions of this same lens. Canon have a rather memorable one. The Canon EF 35mm f1.4 L II USM is an updated version of its predecessor with notable improvements. This lens is not small or light, but it is an impressive performer. It delivers remarkable image quality at an extreme wide aperture. We guarantee it will make any low-light photographer weak in the knees. The lens focuses to 11 inches, impressive for a 35mm. This lens is very sharp, especially for being so wide open. There is a big jump in clarity from other models, especially when compared to the Tamron or Sigma equivalent. You'll get the best quality photos when shooting at f1.4 with the company's most demanding image sensor, the 50-megapixel full frame. Coming in number 1. Canon EF 50mm f1.2 L USM. Next to the 35mm, the nifty 50 is likely the most iconic camera lens of all time. It's been used since photography's inception. The 50mm lens has continued to entice and dazzle photographers to this day. But with its popularity comes the tedious task of determining which 50mm to use. There are hundreds to choose from. Canon supersedes all, in my opinion. The Canon EF 50mm f1.2 L USM is the sharpest 50mm at a faster aperture than f1.4. The colors in contrast are dazzling, and for creamy bokeh lovers, this lens delivers. Built very solid, the lens does have a substantial weight to it. But that is easy to overlook once you take a peek at its image quality. Intended for full-frame bodies, the Canon EF 50mm f1.2 L USM has an extremely fast autofocus. This is not very common for wide-aperture lenses. The lens also rocks an ultrasonic motor with a silent focus motor. This is great for photographing animals. I've always preferred lenses that give me a range to play with. And you can always bump this baby up to f1.8 if the f1.2 is too shallow for you. But it's better to have the option of doing so than not. The other benefit to this particular 50mm is the lack of chromatic aberration.